Hey everybody, this is Fully Up and welcome to another Minecraft tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to build my version of a 3x3 piston door. So this is it in a hallway, in a room so to speak. So as you can see, it's pretty quick. And it's also toggleable, so it means that you can switch it from either side. If you were to use a switch here instead of a button, it would still work. However, you wouldn't be able to switch it off from or you wouldn't be able to close it from the other side. So you could open it, but when you try to close it from the other side, you can't. So with this one, with it using the button, you can. So that's what it looks like when it's inside a room. And that's what it looks like au naturel, without all the paraphernalia around it. So as you can see, apart from the input switches on either side, this thing is actually only one deep. So it's very, very compact for what it is. Now it's based around a 2x1 hipster door, which is that little mechanism there, that bit of redstone there, and those blocks above it. That's a 2x1 hipster door, and the rest of it is built around that. So we'll first of all build the 2x1 hipster door, and if all you need is a door that's 2x1, then you can stop there. But if you wanted a 3x3, then obviously watch the rest of the video. So I'll put a link to everything. I'll put a list of everything you need on screen now. So pause the video if you need to. And now we'll crack on and build this thing. Okay, you're going to need an area that is 9 blocks wide by 7 blocks deep, and you need to dig down 5 blocks. So you need to take that into account when you're preparing to build this. So once you've dug out your area, you won't need all of that space. It's just going to be easier for you having the room down there to work in. So once you've dug your area, your hole, which is 9 by 7 by 5 deep, you want to go down to the very center block, find the center block, and then you want to put a block down next to that, and then a block down above it. This block is going to be your input block. So anything that happens on that block is going to affect whether the door opens or closes. And on that block, you need to put a comparator facing in this way. And then coming off your comparator, you need to put 2 observer blocks. Okay, like that. And then you want to put a block next to the observer. Now on top of that block that you've just placed, you need to put yourself down a blob of redstone dust. And then going back the other way, you need to put a repeater on 4 ticks. Now this needs to be on maximum delay on 4 ticks, otherwise your door is going to break. Now next to the repeater, on top of the observer block, you need to have a piston, sticky piston, facing upwards like that. Now next to the sticky piston and above the comparator, you need to crouch and then put down another observer block. Okay? So now you've got something like that. And on top of that observer block, you need to put another solid block next to the observer. On top of this sticky piston, you need to put down another sticky piston, and that forms your double piston extender, which operates your hipster door. Now next to the sticky piston, you need to crouch again and put down 2 observer blocks. Facing upwards, you need the detection part at the bottom, so it's going to detect when there's a change in that repeater, and it's also going to detect when there's a change in that redstone, and you need the output of the observer blocks facing upwards. Now on top of the right hand observer, this block there, you need to put yourself down another sticky piston, and then you need to fill the rest of it in with solid blocks. So now you've got that. Okay, so just to recap, you've got your input block. You've got two observers facing over to the right, leading into a solid block. Dust on top. Repeater on 4 ticks, leading into a sticky piston. Next to that, you've got an observer with a solid block on top of it. Next to the solid block on top of the sticky piston, you have another sticky piston facing upwards. Next to that, you have 2 observer blocks facing upwards with a sticky piston facing over to the left, and then you complete that with 3 solid blocks. Now, as I say, if you change the state of that block there, it's going to force up those 2 pistons. Change it again, and it pulls them down. So as I say, if you just wanted a 2x1 hipster door, that's it. That's all you're going to need. Just stick a wall around it, a corridor or whatever, or a solid wall going all the way down, and then hook this up to the to a switch, and you've got yourself a 2x1 hipster door. But that's not what we're going to do today. So we'll stick the comparator back in again. Get rid of those blocks. And we'll carry on. So hopefully now you have something that looks like that. Okay, so next we are going to put in the input buttons. You get the 2 buttons on either side, and they're input via this comparator. So we're going to use a T flip-flop for this. So you need to grab yourself a dropper and have your dropper facing out of the comparator. And then you're going to just have to pop yourself down a little bit, because you need a dropper facing downwards. So somehow get below the drop that you've just placed down, and place another dropper next to it facing downwards. Next, you need another dropper facing upwards from there. So you have a dropper facing left, you have a dropper facing down, and then you have a dropper there facing up. And going into that dropper there, you need to get yourself a hopper like that. So you've got dropper facing left, dropper facing down, leading into the hopper, which then leads back into a dropper facing upwards. Now, to make this T flip-flop work, you need to put yourself an item into it. Any old item, doesn't matter. And as you can see, that got activated. So every time now you power that particular dropper, that dropper there, it's gonna cause this to toggle, which is why it's a T flip-flop, because it toggles. So we need to get some power into that one now. So you need to put yourself down a couple of blocks, and then a repeater on standard 1 tick going into that block. And you need to do that on both sides. So it doesn't matter which side the button you press, it will activate the T flip-flop. Like that. Now we need to hook this up to where we're going to be putting our buttons. Now, you don't have to have the buttons next to the door. If you want this to be a secret door, then obviously you can have that leading away somewhere else, anywhere in your base. It doesn't matter, as long as there's a signal going into it. So you don't need the buttons next to the doors. But for this tutorial, we're going to put the buttons up next to the entrance to the door, next to the door. Okay, so to get this power up to the button, or to get the power from the button down to here, we need to just make a simple step up. So you need to step this up like that, then over one, and then up like that. So your input, where your button is going to be directly above the block behind the back of the repeater. And then you just need to put dust on all of these blocks. Not that one. All of these blocks. So now press the button, and it works. Okay, you need to do exactly the same, but mirrored on the other side. So you need to get yourself a block, and a block, and up like that, and then put redstone dust on all of them. Button on there, so it works on both sides. Hopefully now you have something that looks like that. Okay, now it's time to put in the pistons on the right-hand side of the door, or the right-hand side as we look at it. So you want to go back down to the bottom, and you need to put 2 blocks there, a block there and a block there. You need to put a blob of dust on that block, and then that leads into a sticky piston like that. And then on top of the sticky piston, you're going to need a block. And next to it, you'll need another solid block. Okay? Now above that, you need a block there. And on top of that particular block, you're going to have to put your 3 sticky pistons. So you put a sticky piston, they're there and there. So they're directly on top of each other. Now next to the bottom sticky piston, facing upwards, so you've got your smiley face at the bottom, your detection part at the bottom, you've got and the redstone output at the top, and on top of that, you need to put yourself a solid block and then a blob of dust. Okay? Now on top of the sticky piston, you need to put down a solid block. And next to that, above the redstone dust, so you might need to crouch, you need to put yourself down another observer block. Okay, so now we've got that. Now on top of this observer block, you need to put yourself down a solid block. And this is going to run over to the center, to the center piston that pushes a block down in the middle. So you want to go over 4 blocks. So you've got your block above your observer, and then you want to go over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So once you've got those there, you just need to plop yourself down another block there. And then you want to put redstone dust on top of all of them. Now the reason for putting that block there is because if you don't, it affects that piston. Some quasi-connectivity going on there somewhere. And it just means that that piston doesn't get a 1-tick pulse, so it pushes a block out and then it sucks it back in again, which is no good. So in order to combat that, we either need to put a block there with dust on it, or we need to put a repeater there, so it doesn't power the block underneath it. But obviously that the repeater adds a tick to the speed of the center piston, so I just find it better to put a block there with a bit of dust on top of it. Okay, so at the end of that bit of dust, you want to put a sticky piston facing downwards. Like that. And then a block on top. So hopefully now you have something that looks like that. Okay, now we'll put the pistons on the other side of the door. So grab yourself these solid blocks again, your solid blocks. You need to put solid blocks on top of those 2 droppers that we placed down earlier. And at the end of that, you need to put down a sticky piston facing upwards. So you've got your input block that we spoke about, leading up into your observer block. And then to the left of that, you want your 2 solid blocks and then a piston, sticky piston. On top of the sticky piston, you need to put yourself down a block. And on top of these 2 blocks, you need to put yourself down a couple of pieces of redstone dust. So you have something that looks like that. Now on top of this dust, you need to put yourself down 2 blocks, like that. And then on top of this block, this is where your pistons are going to go. So you need to put 3 pistons on top of each other, facing inwards, on top of that block that's above that dust, like that. And whiz round to the outside of it, and above this, sorry, to the next to the bottom sticky piston, you need to put an observer block facing upwards. Okay, so you've got your bottom sticky piston, then an observer block facing upwards with the detection part at the bottom that's going to be activated by that sticky piston pushing that block up. And then on top of that on top of that observer, you need to put yourself down a block, and on top of that block, you need to put yourself down a blob of redstone dust. So now, hopefully, you have something that looks like that. So we're nearly there. Well done, everybody. Right, now we just need to put on the put in the blocks that we're going to use for the door. Now, obviously, you can use any block you want. I'm still going to use quartz, but you need to put a block on the face of every one of these sticky pistons. And if you're putting this inside some kind of room, I'd advise that you use some kind of glowstone or sea lantern-y effect kind of block at the top. That'll give you a bit of light in here as well. So solid blocks on the face of each sticky piston, and then you should have something that looks and works like that. And that works from both sides. So now the mechanism of it is all complete. All we need to do now is decorate it and fill in the floor. So as always, I recommend that you put a load of lighting down the bottom, because there is going to be quite a bit of flashing redstone down there. So grab yourself some torches and spam a few torches around here. It's going to cut down on mob spawns, obviously, and also it's going to restrict the amount of lag caused by your flashing redstone, because once you put a roof over the top of this, it's going to be pretty dark down there. So now you've done that, you need to fill in the rest of your floor. And then you're left with that. So that's how you build my take on a 3x3 piston door that incorporates the 2x1 hipster door. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, everybody. If you have, please don't forget to leave it a like. And if you've really loved it, don't forget to subscribe for future tutorials. This is Fully Off, and I'm out of here.